I think this is. Oh man, I did not adjust the mic to see if it was even facing towards me. Um, this might be the latest I have ever recorded a video. Um, it's like 6 p.m., so we're gonna hope and cross our fingers that we do not get interrupted. It's been a while again. um, I'm just getting over COVID. I had a pretty bad case of it. I mean, I guess it could be worse since like I'm up and moving around right now. Whereas I think some people with it really bad, it's a few weeks before they're doing that. Really glad that I got all of my shots, all of my COVID shots, because it was bad as it was. I can't imagine what it would have been like if I probably would have been hospitalized if I didn't have all of my shots. So, yeah, get your COVID shots, people. It's nasty. Um, but I've been going crazy not recording. So, little bit of a different video today. Um, I so I am known around my house and by my peers for listening to approximately 3 artists in total ever. um, as far as music goes, I listen to Hosier, I listen to the Mountain Goats, and I listen to almost anything by Dan Avedon. Um, I've been really into Shadow Academy lately, specifically from him. And it is known that I do this because nothing else plays in the house on my devices, and I sing these artists nonstop. Well, when I can sing. Now that I since I got diagnosed with having some vocal nodes on my vocal cords, I have been trying to not sing. Um, trying being the operative word there, because you know, I must be singing incorrectly or something to have caused it. So it's best to take care of my voice, rest it, so I can get those taken care of, because that will destroy my ability to sing if I let those go. So I haven't been singing as much lately, and so singing has kind of always felt like a second voice for me. Um, I talked about this in the video where I talked about the vocal nodes. Is singing has been a way for me to kind of feel masculine, like singing music by masculine artists that are songs I relate to kind of feels in a way like a second voice for me. Like it's a way that I can almost speak masculinely without in a voice that is already masculine. Like the singer is masculine, and a lot of times when I sing, I imitate for whatever reason. I don't know why I do this. It's kind of annoying, but I imitate the voice of the singer that I'm singing the music of. So it ends up being kind of a feeling like a way for me to have a masculine voice without being able to take testosterone yet. So because of that, I'm also extremely selective about what I listen to. Not because I'm trying to be like like an elitist or whatever. I don't know enough about music to be an elitist. First of all, I do not know hardly. I can't read music. I can't. I can sing pretty well when I don't have a problem with my vocal cords. And that's about it. I can't play music. I can't do anything other than sing. I can't read music. I don't know music theory. I don't know shit. But I tend to be very selective about the music I listen to. Just because I want to feel something. I don't know, for a lack of better phrasing. I just want to feel something when I'm singing or whatever. So I tend to pick music that I feel like I can closely relate to in one way or another. And I have been trying to kind of broaden my music tastes a little bit. And so this brings us to today's video. In the year of our Lord, 2025, I have rediscovered Queen. I have rediscovered Queen exists. So growing up, well, it was actually, like, I was a bit older than most other kids who kind of discovered it, but when I was, like, I guess, like a young adult, I discovered Bohemian Rhapsody and proceeded to sing it nonstop to the point that my sibling now hates that song. Like, they cannot stand Bohemian Rhapsody because for however long I just would not stop singing it at the top of my lungs around the house. So they're justified in their in their annoyance. This is something I did quite frequently with music that I liked. But aside from that song and a handful of, you know, the ones that everybody knows, like Under Pressure and Another One Bites the Dust. That's Queen, right? I think that's Queen. See, this is where my knowledge of Queen is right now. But I decided, like, I want to expand what I'm listening to, and also, the little bit that I know about Queen is I know that Freddie Mercury was bisexual and died of AIDS. That's like all I know. So I was like, why not listen to a queer artist that you know, was pretty well known for his sexuality. At least now. I wasn't around at the time, so I don't know. I'm not. Again, I don't know music. I don't know the history of anything. And I actually was reading a little bit about him before I made the video. I was literally crying reading the Wikipedia article on his death. I was like, such a loser. But, like, my sister came in the room, and I had, like, tears running down my face, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm reading about Freddie Mercury. She's like, oh, okay. So, I also, when I discover a song that I really like, it goes on loop for however long my brain says it needs to be on loop. And the current song that I have on loop is Liar by Queen. And I wanted to talk about that song a little bit, which I feel like I'm not really qualified to talk about shit, but I don't know. Like, okay, here's my thing about art and, like, interpreting art or reading art. I really like to look at art and see, like, you know, try to derive meaning out of what's there. That's something that I have fun doing, something that I like to do, and you know, I don't do it a lot with music. Again, I'm very picky about the music I listen to, so it's not something I do a lot, but there are certain songs that sometimes I listen to and I feel like it makes sense to me in some way. And so I wanted to talk about Liar specifically because I feel like, and again, I don't know what the lore is. I don't know what everybody's decided things mean. Like, this music has been out forever and decades, literally. And people probably have pretty solid opinions about it one way or another, and what it means, and whether Freddie himself talked about what stuff meant or whatever. I don't know. Again, I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I do believe that when interpreting a piece of work or a piece of art, that the only thing required, and, you know, maybe my opinion will change about this someday, but in my opinion, the only thing required that makes a reading of a piece of art legitimate is if it is supported by the work itself. I think you can have a single piece of work, you know, a song, a painting, a movie, a video, sculpture, whatever. You can have, hello, is that important? No. You can have, you know, a piece of art, and you can have, you know, so many, like, nearly infinite, like, interpretations of it. And the thing that's important that makes it kind of what I would consider a valid interpretation is if you can basically explain your argument, if it is supported by the work itself, and like, and what I mean by that is, like, if, you know, if you can fit all of the pieces together, and all of the pieces can be explained by your interpretation, or fit together in a way that, you know, explains that interpretation, supports it, you know, I think that's a valid reading. And I also very much subscribe to death of the author. For those who don't know, that means, you know, death of the author means that at a certain point, a piece of work is no longer the author's, and it is open to interpretation and discussion, and outside of what the author has said about the piece. And I do believe that. I think when anyone creates something, you are giving birth to an entire, like, thing that now has kind of its own life, its own brain, quote unquote, its own existence, and it is, in a sense, no longer yours. It is yours, you know, in the ways that matter, it's yours, but it is also not yours, because it becomes something else as soon as other people look at it, as soon as other people interact with it. It becomes not yours, in a way. It becomes kind of a communal thing, I think. And those are just kind of my general opinions on art and interpretation and reading. You know, and I'm saying all of that because I have a feeling that people might disagree with me on my thoughts on Liar. Because, like, this song, like, really stuck with me. I first heard it, like, a couple weeks ago, I think. And I really liked it, and then I, like, was listening to it again, and now it's been on loop for about an hour, maybe more. And, you know, I was looking at some of other people's opinions on the song, and a lot of people were talking about how it's, like, somebody who has lied and feels, like, guilty about lying, or guilty about being, like, being held in some kind of unforgiveness. And if you know, if you want to look up the song, you can. I'll put the lyrics in the description, just for, you know, if you want to look at it while I'm talking about it, because I'm not going to be reading them out loud or have them up here. But yeah, and I think for me, I think, you know, Freddie Mercury was bisexual. And what I was reading in the Wikipedia article is that he wasn't very, like, public about his identity. And it was kind of a thing that people, like, knew, I guess, or something that he at least shared with people he was close to. I guess in his obituary it said he was self-confessed bisexual, but it wasn't really anything he said really out loud. And I do think that queerness makes its way into the art we make. You know, queerness is a core part of our identity as queer people. It's, I think it's kind of hard for cis straight people to understand why it makes its way into all areas and aspects of our lives. It's not just a label. It is, in a lot of ways, the lens in which we view love and the lens in which we view our relationships. It's not just an identity. Identity is a very deep and meaningful thing, I think, for a lot of people. But it's, in my experience, queerness makes its way into everything I do, every piece of art I make, because it is such a core part of how I experience love and how I experience my relationships with people and my relationships with myself. And all that is a lot of preamble. What struck me about the song is, I think a lot of people see it as somebody confessing that they do lie. And I think Liar is a perfect bisexuality anthem. And the reason I think that, I should pull up the lyrics to talk about it a little bit, because, actually back up what I'm saying a little bit. But something that is a very common experience for bisexual people. Wow, my phone is at 14%. That's not good. Something that is the case for a lot of bisexual people is being kind of told that you're not bisexual, you are one or the other, right? Like, it's, a lot of bisexual people have faced a lot of erasure in the queer community and outside of the queer community because a lot of people have a hard time believing that you can have attraction to multiple sexes, multiple genders, I should say. And I know this is something that I have experienced for sure. It's a lot of times what you see is, if you're bisexual, people will be like, you're either gay and you're just gay and you're in denial, or you're straight and confused. That's a lot of times the kind of narrative that gets put to bisexual people, because it's for some reason hard for a lot of people to understand that you can, and many people do, experience attraction, sexual and romantic, to both all genders, multiple genders, and that being bisexual and in a gay relationship does not make you gay, or just gay, and being bisexual and in a straight passing relationship, which I see a lot, it does not make you straight either. There's a lot of hatred towards bisexual people who are in straight passing relationships, because it's like, well, you can't claim this queer label because you are in a relationship that everybody sees as straight, and therefore your identity doesn't count, which is total bullshit, by the way. Absolute bullshit. If you are bisexual no matter who you are with. And I know for me, I have struggled with, in the past, where, I knew I liked girls from a fairly young age, and liking boys was obvious for me. And, my bisexuality was like, I have had times where I'm like, do I just like one or the other, and I'm, maybe making up this other attraction, and, a lot of self-discovery and exploration recently has confirmed, no, I'm attracted to all genders, unfortunately. There we go. That's biphobia towards myself, right? Like, it's very pervasive. And, I wasn't around them, but I'm sure Freddie went through a lot of biphobia. It was not, I read a thing where it was like, at one point when they were discussing his homosexuality, it was like, being gay had just been decriminalized like 7 years earlier, and it's like, dear God, like, decriminalized? Like, that's crazy. Like, it used to be a crime to be gay, and like, I knew that, but it's also like, God. You know, in some ways, it's really scary out there right now, especially in America, and it is dangerous. It's becoming dangerous to be queer again, but I am glad, you know, we do have some things to be grateful for, in that it right now, as it currently stands, it is not a crime to be gay. Being trans is currently another thing, but we're not going to get into that right now. That's not what this video is about. Anyway, so with the song Liar, the song, nope, that's the wrong song. There's another song called Liar. That's not by Queen. So the song talks about, the singer is like saying things that they have done, and it opens with like, I've stolen, raised my voice in anger, and then, you know, it's the singer is being called a liar in the song many times. And what it feels like to me, and the song also like grapples with the singer's relationship with God, and their relationship with their mother, which I'd actually be interested to, if any information came out on, you know, I don't know, he talks about his mom in multiple songs. I know he's in Bohemian Rhapsody, it's also a thing, so I'd be interested to know if there was anything that he talked about that, but apparently he didn't talk in a lot of interviews, so I don't know. But I think that, you know, the way that the song comes across to me is somebody who is almost praying for forgiveness for being queer, but doesn't want to pray for forgiveness for being queer. Like, the singer is listing all of the things they have done wrong aside from being gay. And that the call of liar, the accusation of liar, is that's not what you're upset about. That's not what you're asking for forgiveness for. You know, that's not the sin you're confessing. You're not here to confess about stealing or shouting, you know, raising your voice at people. You're here to confess about being gay, but you also won't say it, and you won't actually confess it. And the liar piece is, you know, you think you're here to confess these other things when the thing you actually feel guilty about is being queer. And it talks about, you know, being, you know, some of the lyrics talk about being a slave to his mother, and that is something that makes me wonder, and obviously I don't know his life, and he was very private about his life, but, you know, it makes me wonder, like, how his relationship with his queerness affected his relationship with, you know, his parents. Like, I was reading that, you know, he had a long-term relationship with this one girl, and then when he came out to her about being bi, their relationship ended, and they were friends for a while after, but, you know, I think sometimes it's easy to forget. I mean, I live in a very queerphobic area. I live in an area where my sexuality is demonized actively. My gender identity is demonized. It is a constant battle to be recognized for my sexuality and gender. And it's not respected most of the time. And there are a lot of people nowadays who don't live in those areas and forget that it's still like that in places. And then I think we all forget how even just in the 70s and 80s, how, and, you know, 90s, how hard it was to be queer. And, you know, I can't imagine being a bisexual man in the spotlight who eventually contracted AIDS. And, you know, the things he must have been called, like, he had various partners of varying genders, and you know, it wouldn't shock me if he was by many people called a liar. You know, pick a side, you're either gay or you're straight. You know, like that's a lot of times the narrative that happens even today is, you know, just pick a side, pick one. You know, it can't be both. And obviously there's a lot more acceptance nowadays. There's more acceptance nowadays than there ever has been for queer identities and the identity of being bisexual. But there are still definitely areas and people that you will run into where it's not okay. It's not normalized. It's not not seen as a valid identity for one reason or another, from both within the queer community and without. And again, it's gotten way better, way better. I think most progressive areas don't have that problem, but you know, like where I am, it's, you know, I've definitely heard the, you know, you're not bisexual, you're just confused. You know, if you still like men, why would you like women? And those are people who don't understand that I'm trans, and that for me, liking men is gay and has always felt gay. I've never felt normal about my attraction to any gender. I've never felt straight about my attraction to any gender. Even my attraction to women as a man now does not feel straight. It is still queer for me. And, you know, I can't imagine being someone in the spotlight like that, and, you know, having these different relationships, and who knows what people called him behind closed doors, you know, and who knows what kind of shit he heard for trying to just be queer. You know, I don't know a lot about him. I don't know, and I feel a hyperfixation coming on. I suspect I'm gonna be listening to a lot of Queen in the coming days. But it just really struck me that, like, the song, like, you know, all of these sins, you know, that he's listing, and it's like, that's not what you actually are worried about. That's not what you're worried God will turn you away for. And I know that reminds me of, like, my own journey with God and queerness, which I'm still having. I'm still figuring that out. I'm still on that. Because, you know, the Christian world will tell you that you cannot be queer and love God. And I like that in the song, you know, he says, you know you won't leave me, to God. He says, you know you won't leave me. You know, guide me in the right direction, you know, even though, and this isn't said, but it's like, even if my, you know, my sin is wrong, even if it is a sin. And that is the thing as a queer person struggling with God is, you know, I personally can't imagine that a loving God who created us would call love a sin. Like, I can't see a world where a God who is supposed to be the epitome of love, and who is supposed to have made the greatest sacrifice, could see me as an abomination for being trans or for being bisexual, you know. Being queer, realizing my queerness has been a complicated battle. Don't cry. Don't cry. Because it's hard, and I have a lot of internalized queer phobia, a lot of internalized biphobia, a lot of internalized transphobia. I was raised with a lot of hatred towards sexuality and gender identity. And, you know, even if you identify with that stuff, You know, the hatred you're taught grows into you, and it becomes a part of how you see yourself. And there's not a small part of me that is disgusted by my own queerness, and my own gender identity. And I don't believe that's because it is actually wrong to be queer. It's because I was raised to believe it is wrong by churches who can't see how beautiful it is, and how, you know, I've said this before, but I think I see more of God's love in the queer community right now than I see in the church. And that's a bold fucking statement, but right now the church is very caught up with rules, very caught up in living the correct life, living under these very strict beliefs of what it means to be a child of God. When it was supposed to be about love and compassion and forgiveness. You know, the whole reason that Jesus is a thing is that the Bible says that Jesus came to fulfill the law, basically because the law was never supposed to be the end-all be-all of humanity. The law was never supposed to be able to encompass all of our complexities and all of our needs and all of what goes into being a human. The law was never supposed to cover all of that, and that's why Jesus hated the Pharisees, is because they upheld the law above the needs of the people. They refused to heal on the Sabbath. They, you know, turned the temple into a business area, and you know, it's shit like that is why Jesus hated them, is because they were so obsessed with the law and the book and the words that they forgot about the people. And the whole point of Jesus' existence was supposed to be a fulfillment of the law, of what the law could not be. The law could not be a man, a, you know, fully formed flesh and blood man, and could not be dynamic enough for it to fit the needs of the people who needed it. And that was the whole fucking point, is the law isn't enough. The rules aren't enough because humans are more diverse than that. Humans are more complex than that. Humans need to be diverse and complex. And queerness is a part of that diversity. Transness is a part of that diversity. And, you know, it's stuff like that why I just can't believe that I cannot believe that a God who sacrificed his own child, whether you believe in that or not, I cannot believe that a God who sacrificed his own child to save humanity is going to draw the line at genuine love we have for each other. I can't believe he would draw the line at realizing that you were born in the wrong body, or that a different set of pronouns fits you, or that you prefer another name, that you prefer to sleep with or date people of different genders, people of the same gender as you, multiple people in a consenting open relationship, consenting non-monogamous relationship. I can't believe that was ever intended to be the case. And yet, it's still something that I struggle with, where it's like, you know, but, you know, it's like I believe that, and yet I keep hearing, you know, from, you know, people I care about very deeply that it's perverse. You're perverse. That I'm, you know, it's because of trauma, that it's because, you know, it's because of sin in my life, that, you know, I can't be right with God until I'm straight and cis. you know, that God created me as a woman, and that God intended for me to love men as a woman, and only men. And, you know, I just, you know, the song Liar also reminds me of a song called No Place in Heaven by Mika, which expresses kind of a similar sentiment. You know, Father, won't you forgive me for my sin? Father, if there's a heaven, let me in. Kind of this crying out to God, and a desire to be loved by God, and a desire to be accepted by God, while knowing we can't change ourselves. We can't not love who we love, and we can't not be the identity we are. And obviously there's another layer for me of being trans as well as bi, which Mika himself is gay, I believe, but, you know, Freddie was bi. And, you know, Liar for me also works as a trans thing, because it's like, there are so many people who've called me a liar for, you know, being trans, you know, who, you know, you were just traumatized as a child, you know, it's all trauma, and it's, you know, you're not actually a man, you're just confused, you're actually a girl, God made you a girl, so you must be a girl. You know, I don't know. Kind of trailing off into other things other than just the song, which I think is fine. This isn't meant to be a deep dive into the song. It was meant to be me talking about the song because it brought up a lot of feelings and thoughts. If you haven't heard Liar by Queen, it's really good. I'll probably link it. If I remember to do these things. That's the trick. I need to remember to actually do these things. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm just so excited to put the video up that I don't remember to do my job and make information accessible. Oops. But yeah, I'm probably gonna be listening to a lot of Queen. I like the music, so, and Liar is probably gonna be on repeat for a few days, much to the chagrin of my family. Yeah, I think it's so important to connect with queer artists, and you know, connect with our history as well. You know, I think because of the AIDS crisis, and because of the nature of how queerness has been silenced again and again and pushed down by our society, and you know, we have not been encouraged to keep our history alive. And I mean, we lost a lot of our queer elders in the AIDS crisis, and you know, and just through time, like, trans people tend to just live shorter lifespans just because of the violence we face, and the oppression we face, and just how hard it is to live in society as a trans person. And you know, society wants us to not communicate with each other and communicate with those who came before us. I sit in kind of a weird place where I'm technically a younger queer, but because of where I grew up, my experience aligns more with queer people about 10 years older than me, roughly. Tends to be, just because of the amount of queerphobia I've experienced, and the isolation I've had from other queer people growing up. You know, when I was in middle school, there was one openly gay man in our boy, one openly gay boy in our school, and he was relentlessly bullied for it. Everybody knew his name just because he was the queer boy, and he was like the only one that was out. I don't even know if he was out by choice or not, to be honest. And at the time, I was part of the problem. Like I didn't make fun of him. I was being bullied for being a lesbian that I didn't identify as. So, there was a lot of isolation growing up, as a queer, closeted individual. And that's something that I think as a community we have to work against. We have to pay attention to the older queer people in our community. We have to listen to them. And it's really important if you are young, and especially if you have been lucky enough to grow up in a situation where your queerness was not as demonized as it has been for some of us. Everybody has faced, I think every queer person has faced some level of oppression at some point in their lives, even if it was something really minor. Just living in America right now, you're facing oppression by existing. But there are young queer people that I'm so happy are growing up knowing it's okay, and having parents who encourage their identity and encourage their transitions and encourage their experimentation. I think that's wonderful that there are young people today growing up with that being their reality, but it has not been the reality for a lot of us, me and people much older than me. And there can sometimes be a divide among us where queer trauma is not a lighthearted thing. It's real and it's pervasive and it will fuck you up. And I think there are a lot of us that have some very deep and insidious queer trauma that makes us feel a little isolated from the people who are able to enjoy their identities freely, and grew up in a space where they were encouraged by the people in their lives. And again, I'm not saying that people who were encouraged to grow up like that didn't ever experience queerphobia, transphobia. I'm not saying that. I know you have. Everyone has, to an extent. But I think it's important to be mindful of where we came from, and that it, especially now that things are getting really hard again, that it has been harder before. It has been a lot harder before, and we've had a lot of our own die from the AIDS crisis, from just trying to exist in America as a queer trans person. It's very important to realize where we came from, and it's important to connect to each other and support each other. Find community where you can. Reach out to the queer people that you see that are isolated. Start up groups where you can, go to groups where you can. A lot of times I've been a part of queer groups that have lost funding and completely dissipated because there was just not enough queer people attending. It's very hard to keep them afloat in certain areas because not enough people go, because we've isolated ourselves. So I don't know. This took like 15 different turns. But I know it's really hard in America and other places in the world right now to be queer or trans or both. But stay alive and keep going, find community, because I think there are some very hateful people in power right now who are trying to write us out of existence, especially trans people. All queer people, but especially trans people. And I don't think they'll be able to. Even if they are able to for a little while, I don't think they will be able to long term. I think the tides of change are moving in a direction that has been picked, and that direction says that love wins and that we are all equal and that we deserve to be here and we belong here. And though there are some very hateful people who right now say that we don't belong here and we don't belong in this country, on this planet, I do think that they will lose. Any battles they win, they will lose in the war. Because we've always been here. We're scattered all across history. It's not a new thing. Being trans is not a new thing. Being queer is not a new thing. As far back as you can go, you can find examples of queer people. You know, back when there was black and white photographs, you know, there were queer people. You can find them. And even before that, there were queer people. You know, back in ancient Egypt, there were queer people. There's always been queer people. We've always been here. And you know, the people who are like, this is a fad, this is, you know, whatever, trans trender or whatever is being said, like, you know, we've always fucking been here because it's normal and it's natural and it's real. Like, our identities are real and we are real people who have real love towards each other and, you know, real gender identities that deserve to be respected and acknowledged and encouraged. So, I know it looks rough right now, but don't fall into despair, especially right now. Things might get worse for a while before they get better, but I do think they will get better. And that's not just wishful thinking. I don't like to speak out of my ass, you know, just hoping and praying. I think this is how, you know, the world has chosen to go, or at least our, you know, world, our country has chosen. You know, I still remember the day, I remember the day gay marriage was legalized in America, and you know, we picked what direction we're going in, we picked what direction the tides are going in, and I don't think that even very powerful, wealthy, hateful people can change that. I don't think they can. So, stay alive, stay hopeful, stay queer, stay trans, and take care of yourselves for me.